All right, you sick fucks. Welcome back to the deep dive. And today we're going to wade into some seriously dark shit.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the OG mustache twirler himself, Adolf freaking Hitler.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know heavy stuff, but, let's cut the crap.
Right.
There's something weirdly fascinating about trying to understand how this absolute asshat managed to, fuck up the world so spectacularly.
Yeah, it's...
Our main source. You guys a good old Wikipedia.
Oh, come on, really?
Hey, don't judge. Sometimes the basics are all you need to get the party started.
Well, Wikipedia can be a surprisingly good jumping-off point. I mean,
So-
think of it as a gateway drug to some seriously hardcore history.
Exactly. So consider this your crash course on Hitler.
Okay.
From his messed up family tree to his rise to power. We're going to try to figure out how this little shit went from failed artist to genocidal maniac.
It's a wild ride.
It's a wild ride, so buckle up, buttercups.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that Hitler's family history is actually pretty fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his dad, Alois, was born illegitimate. His grandfather went through more name changes than a witness protection program. It makes you wonder, right? Does a name have some kind of weird power over you?
I mean, imagine if this dude was running around as Adolf Schicklgruber.
Schicklgruber.
Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? Heil Schicklgruber.
Yeah, no, not going to work. But seriously, think about it. That social stigma, the feeling of being an outsider, could that have messed with Alois' head? And could that have somehow, trickled down to Hitler himself?
It's a thought, isn't it? The ripples of family dysfunction, how they can create these waves that wash over generations.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fast forward to young Adolf.
Okay.
Turns out this little prick wasn't exactly a shining star, flunked out of high school, failed the art school entrance exam twice.
Really?
Imagine the world if Hitler had just passed that damn art exam. Maybe we'd be looking at Hitler the Impressionist instead of Hitler the Tyrant.
It's tempting to play the what-if game, but it's important to remember the historical context.
Yeah. Vienna in the early 1900s was a breeding ground for anti-Semitism and all sorts of crazy ideologies.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Hitler, the frustrated artist, soaked up that hate like a sponge.
Total.
You can almost see the resentment building, right?
Yeah, it's like a recipe for disaster. Take one failed artist, add a dash of societal prejudice, and stir in a whole lot of anger.
Yep.
Boom. You got yourself a future dictator.
And then to top it all off, you throw in World War I.
Ah, yes, World War I, the war that gave birth to the stab-in-the-back myth.
Right.
The idea that Germany didn't really lose the war. They were betrayed by, wait for it, the Jews.
Classic.
I know, right?
Hitler, like a lot of Germans, couldn't accept defeat.
Of course not.
He latched on to this conspiracy theory, this bullshit idea that the Jews were to blame for everything.
Unbelievable.
It fueled his rage and gave him a convenient scapegoat for all of Germany's problems.
So we've got a failed artist stewing in this toxic mix of resentment and paranoia,
Yeah.
clinging to conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, this is where things get really interesting, because this is when our little art school reject decides, hey, I think I'll give politics a shot.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And the world was never the same.
The world was never the same. So Hitler's foray into politics is a masterclass in manipulation and opportunism. This dude was a natural-born bullshit artist.
Yeah, he didn't just storm the gates. He slithered in through the back door. The dude was a political ninja. So remind me again, how the hell did this washed-up art school reject end up in charge of an entire country?
Well, he joined this tiny fringe group, called the German Workers' Party. They later rebranded as the National Socialist German Workers' Party.
Wait, the National Socialist what now? That doesn't sound very Nazi, does it?
Yeah, well, branding is everything, right?
Yes.
Anyway, this was post-World War I. Germany, the economy was in the shitter. People were pissed off and they were looking for someone to blame.
Right.
Enter Adolf stage right with his fiery speeches and his scapegoats.
Ah, the classic blame the Jews routine.
Yeah.
It's a tale as old as time. But seriously, people actually bought into this crap.
It's easy to judge in hindsight, but imagine you're living in that time, you've lost the war, your economy's collapsed, your national pride is in the toilet. Along comes this guy, this charismatic motherfucker who says, hey, it's not your fault, it's those damn Jews. People were desperate for answers, desperate for someone to blame.
So he's riling up the crowds, gaining followers, and then, bam, the beer hall putsch. What a fucking shit show.
Yeah, it was a pathetic attempt at a coup. Hitler basically thought he could just waltz into a beer hall, yell a bit, and take over the government.
What a fucking moron. I mean, the guy couldn't even pass art school, and he thinks he can overthrow the government.
Yeah. Well,
what an idiot.
the putsch was a disaster. Hitler was arrested, tried for treason, and sentenced to 5 years in prison.
5 years. That's a slap on the wrist for trying to overthrow the goddamn government.
Well, he only served about a year, but that's where he wrote Mein Kampf.
Ah, yes, Mein Kampf, the ultimate guide to being a racist dickhead.
It's a disturbing read full of hatred, paranoia, and this delusional vision of a master race.
So our boy gets out of prison. His book becomes a bestseller among the neo-Nazi crowd, and Germany is still circling the drain thanks to the Great Depression. It's the perfect storm for a power grab, right?
Absolutely. Hitler was a master at exploiting chaos. He knew how to tap into people's fear and anger, and with the Weimar Republic crumbling around him, he saw his chance.
This is where shit really hits the fan. So how does he go from failed revolutionary to the fucking Fuhrer?
It was a slow burn, a series of calculated moves. He played the political game, formed alliances, and exploited every weakness of the Weimar system. The Nazi Party went from a fringe group to a major political force.
And people just voted for them. I mean, it's not like they were hiding their bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Mein Kampf was right there on the bookshelf.
People were scared, they were angry, they were looking for a strong man, someone to restore order and make Germany great again, and Hitler, with his promises of national revival and his scapegoating of minorities, fit the bill.
It's a classic playbook, isn't it? Fear and division. It's how all the worst dictators get their start.
And then in 1933, Hindenburg, the president of Germany, appoints Hitler as chancellor.
Wait, so the president just hands him the keys to the country?
Hindenburg was old, out of touch, and desperate for a solution to the political chaos. He saw Hitler as a necessary evil, a way to restore order and crush the communist threat.
And just like that, the failed artist, the beer hall revolutionary, the Wikipedia editor, becomes the most powerful man in Germany. Talk about a glow-up.
And he didn't waste any time consolidating his power.
Oh, yeah. I almost forgot about the Reichstag fire. Convenient, wasn't it?
The fire, which destroyed the German parliament building, provided the perfect pretext for the Nazis to crack down on their opponents.
Classic false flag operation. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So who actually started the fire? Was it those pesky communists like the Nazis claimed, or was it...
That's the million-dollar question. Some historians believe the Nazis themselves set the fire to create a climate of fear and justify their power grab.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me these Nazi fucks were masters of propaganda and manipulation.
Regardless of who started it, the Reichstag fire gave Hitler the excuse he needed to ram through the Enabling Act, which effectively gave him dictatorial powers.
So long democracy, hello fascism.
The Enabling Act was the death knell for the Weimar Republic. It marked the beginning of the Nazi dictatorship, a reign of terror that would last for 12 long years.
This is where shit really gets dark.
Life in Nazi Germany was a nightmare. They burned books, shut down newspapers, and threw anyone who disagreed with them into concentration camps.
And let's not forget about the whole master race bullshit. These guys were obsessed with racial purity. It's like they were trying to create a real-life version of the Lord of the Rings, but with worse haircuts.
Nazi ideology was a toxic blend of nationalism, racism, and anti-Semitism. They believed in the supremacy of the Aryan race and saw everyone else as inferior.
It's mind-blowing how fucked up their ideology was. And the crazy thing is, millions of people bought into it.
Hitler was a master manipulator. He knew how to tap into people's fears and prejudices. He created this us versus them mentality, this idea that Germany was surrounded by enemies.
And of course, the Jews were enemy number one.
Hitler's hatred for Jews was pathological. He blamed them for everything. Germany's defeat in World War I, the economic crisis, the moral decline of society. It was complete and utter bullshit.
And yet millions of people believed him. It's scary how easily people can be manipulated, especially when they're afraid.
The Nazi propaganda machine was incredibly effective. They controlled the media, the schools, the arts. They bombarded people with this twisted worldview, this constant message of hate and fear.
And anyone who dared to speak out was silenced.
Dissent was crushed. They had the Gestapo, the SS, a whole network of thugs and informants. If you even whispered a word against the regime, you could disappear.
It's chilling, isn't it? How quickly a society can descend into tyranny.
It's a reminder that freedom is fragile and that we can never take it for granted.
So we've got Hitler in power, the Nazi Party is running the show, and Germany is transformed into this totalitarian nightmare. What's next on the agenda for our Führer?
World domination.
Oh, right. World War II. That little thing. Yeah. All right, so we've covered Hitler's fucked up rise to power and the Nazis' twisted ideology. But let's be real. The real reason we're talking about this asshole is because of the Holocaust.
Yeah, there's no getting around it. This is where shit gets really heavy.
6 million Jews murdered. 6 fucking million. It's It's hard to even wrap your head around a number like that.
It's almost beyond comprehension, and it's not just the sheer scale of it, it's the systematic industrialized nature of it. They literally built factories of death.
It's so fucked up. And for what? Because some delusional prick decided that an entire race of people were the enemy.
Hitler's hatred for Jews was at the core of Nazi ideology. It was the driving force behind the Holocaust.
And it wasn't just some random act of violence. This was planned, organized, bureaucratic. They kept records, they took photos, they even drew up blueprints for the gas chambers. It's chilling.
The level of detail, the meticulous planning, it's like they wanted to document their crimes for posterity.
I mean, what the fuck? What kind of sick mind comes up with this shit?
It's hard to fathom, isn't it? The depths of human cruelty, the sheer depravity, it's enough to make you lose faith in humanity.
And the worst part is it wasn't just Hitler. He had a whole network of collaborators, enablers, people who carried out his orders without question.
The Holocaust wouldn't have been possible without the complicity of thousands, maybe millions of people.
It's a reminder that evil doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It takes a society to turn a blind eye, to look the other way, to remain silent.
And it's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to speak out against injustice, to fight against hatred and intolerance wherever we see it.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the horrors of the Holocaust, but let's not forget that this asshole also started a world war.
Yeah, World War II, Hitler's insatiable lust for power, and his twisted vision of a greater German Reich plunged the world into the deadliest conflict in human history.
So this dude's got Germany under his thumb. He's systematically exterminating the Jews, and now he's got his sights set on world domination. What a fucking ego trip, right?
Well, his early military campaigns were surprisingly successful. He used this blitzkrieg tactic, lightning war, and it caught everyone off guard. He conquered Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, France. It was a whirlwind of victories.
Sounds like this guy had a knack for military strategy.
He was a gambler. He took risks that other leaders wouldn't have dared, and for a while it paid off.
But then he made the mistake of invading Russia, Operation Barbarossa, right?
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end for Hitler. The Russian winter, the vast distances, the fierce resistance of the Soviet people, it all proved too much for the German army.
It's like he forgot that Russia's basically a giant freezer, not exactly ideal for blitzkrieg, right?
Hitler's arrogance and his refusal to listen to his generals ultimately led to his downfall.
So the war's not going so well. His armies are getting their asses kicked on multiple fronts, and what does our boy Adolf do?
He retreats into his bunker, becoming increasingly isolated and paranoid. He surrounded himself with sycophants who told him what he wanted to hear, even as the reality of defeat became undeniable.
Classic dictator move, right? Surround yourself with yes men and live in a fantasy world.
And then in April of 1945, with Soviet troops closing in on Berlin, Hitler commits suicide.
So this guy who thought he was going to conquer the world ends up taking the coward's way out. Talk about a pathetic ending.
It's a fitting end to a horrific chapter in human history.
So what can we learn from all this? What's the takeaway from our little deep dive into the abyss of Hitler's life?
I think the biggest lesson is that evil can wear many faces. Hitler wasn't some monstrous ogre. He was a charismatic leader who seduced an entire nation with his promises of greatness and his scapegoating of minorities.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we can't just sit back and wait for the bad guys to show their true colors. We have to be vigilant, we have to call out bullshit when we see it, and we have to fight like hell to protect our freedoms.
And we have to remember the victims, the 6 million Jews who were murdered in the Holocaust, the millions of others who died in the war. Their stories deserve to be told. Their memories deserve to be honored.
Right on. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into the life and times of Adolf Hitler. It's been a wild ride through the darkest corners of human history. I don't know about you, but I need a drink after this one.
It's heavy stuff for sure, but it's important that we don't shy away from it. We have to learn from the past, even the ugliest parts of it, so that we can create a better future.
Cheers to that. Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and for fuck's sake, stay human. Peace out.